Jamaica, make we do the right thing. Make we live good today for a better tomorrow. Talk it out. Don't fight it out. The time by the Ministry of National Security is
6:30.
So just what is this political chess game that the Prime Minister is playing? The announcement of one by-election for North East St. Anne has tongues wagging as to what the motivation is behind the decision to not have a by-election in South Trelawney, for instance, and of course North West St. Andrew by the time the Finance Minister leaves office by October 31. Many people say, well, Holness is exercising his prerogative under the Westminster system, controlling the destiny of the elections by making the right call at a time favorable to his party. But some are saying it is a bad political move and it is a waste of taxpayers' money. I'll get the political analysts to weigh in right now on Lead Story on CVM TV. Welcome to CVM TV's Lead Story. My name is George Davis. So, a day after the announcement by the Prime Minister of a by-election in North East St. Anne, political hacks and commentators, two different groups, are chewing over the announcement. Central to the discussion is why the Prime Minister did not choose to have 3 by-elections in one go, a year out from when the next general elections are constitutionally due. Why one of a potential 3 and why no? What is the undue haste, it appears, to put Matthew Samuda into the House of Representatives when he was already a member of the legislature by virtue of being a senator and, of course, a minister, even though he was without portfolio in the office of the Prime Minister? Far be it from me to tell you what the Prime Minister was thinking when he made the decision he made, which translated into the announcement on Wednesday. The political analysts are going to weigh into that in short order. But as usual, we have a package prepared for you to set the context for today's discussion.
Jamaica may not be known to have climatic seasons, but we do have seasons of widespread excitement like sports seasons and mango seasons. But it's the political season that has the most palpable national impact. There's a general election due by 2025, and the building blocks are being laid for an intense battle. The PNP is already asking the Prime Minister to call it. But why? Well, one would think it's because of the recent polls showing the political momentum on its side, and a disappointing outcome for Belmont Road in the February local government polls. The JLP goes back to the polls for a by-election in North East St. Anne on September 30, with more expected to come in St. Andrew Northwestern and Trelawney South. The party believes those by-elections are likely to be in its favor, with all 3 being in the bell column for consistent electoral cycles. But the PNP has its eyes set on a new cycle and will head into party conference next week, which is likely to be the last before the general election. So, can the PNP showcase an effective political theatre and policy platforms and pull off an electoral shift from shower to power? Or is the JLP full speed ahead on the prosperity train for a 3rd consecutive term? Let's discuss on this Lead Story.
Thank you, Curtin. Thank you, Jonathan, for preparing that. Let's take a break, and when we come back, we'll hear from political commentators Kevin O'Brien-Jang and Dr. Nadine Spence.
You've weathered
the storm, but rebuilding and preparing for back to school have taken a toll. It's time to get some money in your pocket. At Chris and Charles, we understand your financial needs. With just a quick call, you can access funds to catch up on bills and cover unexpected expenses. Our process is fast, simple, with funds deposited in your account in no time. Don't stress, get money in your pocket. Call 876-926-0609 or visit our website today. Conditions apply. When you think loans, think Chris and Charles.
What's your story? What's your sign? You're dreamers. Don't care what other people say. We're doing this in our own way. We come alive. We come alive. We come alive. We're doing this in our own way. We come alive.
Celine, where you going?
We can't say we're a friend now. Celine.
We have to take on the road.
Yeah, man, we have to take out the same way. All right, Lord, thank you so much for this day.
Me, I do the work. Yeah. And the people, them accept it.
Clarendon, Mandeville. But now we get to go into the inner city of Kingston.
I can't wait to learn more as we go across Jamaica into different churches to understand what they do.
We are doing this edition of Lead Story on this Thursday against the background of a report submitted to the Houses of Parliament by the Integrity Commission, and everything points to the Prime Minister being the subject of the Integrity Commission report. It's been political fodder for the opposition over several months now, the fact of the Prime Minister's statutory declarations, the status of same, and one waits with bated breath to see what the report will say when it is tabled in the Parliament when it resumes from its summer recess next week. It is scheduled to resume. So against that background, we're having this conversation about the start of the long sprint to next year when we go into the next general election. Kevin Abraham-Chang is with me, and so too Dr. Nadine Spence. Good afternoon. Good evening, Kevin. Good evening, Dr. Spence.
Hi, George.
Hi, Kevin.
All right. Ladies first. Dr. Spence, one by-election and not three. Holiness is saying, look, I have the space and the freedom under Westminster to do as I have done. Nothing illegal about it, nothing unfair. Prime Ministers have done same in the past. Nothing strange to see here. The PNP saying, no, it's an abuse and it's a waste of taxpayers' money. And we are not contesting because we don't believe in the principles under which this by-election is being held. How do you interpret it all?
It's a political script. Any party in power, any party forming government is going to employ tactics that are within the law, within the electoral law, within the constitutional law, to put itself at an advantage, as you call it, the political chess game. Any party in power would do that. Any party in opposition, if they find that they're going to be negatively impacted by a particular move, will protest. If we look at the United States, for example, the other day when Joe Biden pulled out and Kamala Harris took the leadership of the Democratic Party in terms of the presidential elections, that the Republicans started to complain that they had these plans. They had all kinds of responses to it because they saw it as putting themselves at a disadvantage. So I think it's part of the course of political parties and democracies. That's how they are. This is, to me, it's part of the natural course of things. The government is going to do one thing, or the party in power is going to do one thing, and the party in opposition is going to protest if it feels that it puts them at a disadvantage.
Kevin, the PNP say they're standing on principle by not contesting this Northeast St. Anne by-election. Are you buying that?
By the way, George, are we political analysts or political hacks? You didn't define, you know.
Yeah, that's a good question.
It's hypocrisy. Both parties could easily, they've been in power. They could easily pass a law, say, okay, after an MP resigns, 30 days after that, by election. Both have had a chance to do it, and they haven't done it. Because they want to be, I'm in power, I want to be able to do that. The PNP has done it, we know that. So it's just political hypocrisy, grandstanding, and makes the public even more cynical. You guys could change the law, and you haven't. Please stop with this garbage. They're not contesting on principle. Well, the PNP figures they can't win. And so if we lose, we're going to look a little bad, even though it's considered a safe seat for the JLP. It wasn't always. In 2001, when Shahini Robinson won in that by-election, it was a big, considered an upset at the time. She has somehow made it a JLP safe seat. I guess a good performance because Marsha Smith is certainly not very popular. But it's, I guess, a damp squib start to the long run-up. I guess Matthew, and I guess the JLP figures that get him in the seat now to work so that when the real election comes around, he can retain the seat for them. That's their hope, I would guess.
But further than that, Kevin, the fact of the PNP not contesting, Northeast St. Anne, as you've said, is somewhere they've not won since 1997. Danny Melville won it for them there. Then, of course, they lost it in 2001 to Shahini Robinson. Prior to that, only in 80 and 83 when Bobby Marsh won the 80 elections. And, of course, 83, the PNP didn't contest any seat. So the JLP won that. But from 1959 forward, Northeast St. Anne was a PNP seat. So they didn't contest that because as you say, the history doesn't support them winning or suggest that they will win there. So isn't that the good political strategy? The opposition wants to give the Jamaican people the impression that it is the buoyant party. It says the polls are in its favor. Isn't it sound political strategy to find a way to avoid contesting Northeast St. Anne, stand on some principle, to not risk doing anything that can deflate the balloon of optimism at this time?
Yes, it's just common sense. I agree. It's common sense. We look like we're, have the momentum. If you believe the poll that Golding is more popular than Holness. So why risk that? Yeah, that's how politics is. But I maintain laws can easily be passed to prevent this kind of rubbish, and it is a waste of money. Why have one and you can have three at the same time? Because it suits the JLP and suits the Prime Minister. But why should that power be allowed to waste taxpayers' money? I maintain, I said this a few years back, about 5 years ago, when I remember Robert Morgan, there's a by-election up there, and, if they should have the by-election then and all that. And I said the same thing as now. Pass a law, and the PNP, if they're not hypocrites, they can propose this law, the JLP can do it. 30 days after an MP resigns, election, by-election. Something can be done. The PNP looks very hollow to this grandstanding morality and not doing anything to prevent it happening in the future.
Dr. Spence, the PNP made the point that Matthew Samuda was already a legislator. Why ask a legislator resign to put him in a position to be a legislator all over again? And some believe that the Prime Minister ought to have come with a little bit more substantial explanation to the public at the office of the Prime Minister at that press briefing on Wednesday. What's your view on that?
Well, let's think about it. Matthew Samuda is a senator. He's not a member of the House of Representatives. So let's think about what that could mean. Nigel Clarke's term in office comes to an end on the 31st of October. You cannot serve, the Constitution says, the lower house, but the Prime Minister is fascinating in terms of suppose.
The time by Grace. Taste that moves you is
6:45.
We step out of the barber shop. We're outside right now. We're at Ribby's waterfront.
You see my story, that's God. God put people in my life and make them give me vision and help me.
The dream weekends, the this, the that. Are you first set the pattern there in the 80s?
As a promoter, yes. When I start make some clothes, I look for what me and Marlon used to wear then. I don't wonder how we they ugly or fast.
Taboo became an instant hit then.
We could call it a gentleman's club.
A gentleman's club.
Yeah.
We have all the executives coming.
I call the name Ruby. You're going to mash up some house.
The Cut is brought to you by Flow.
You know my heart goes crazy when you take the lips to time. Let's explore our love. We'll leave the world behind. Can you feel
This is Schoolboy Football, September 7 to December 14 on CVM TV.
I said the day before the Prime Minister announced the by-election in North East St. Anne that he was turning up the wick on the political scene, and that has been confirmed by what has happened subsequent to that announcement that Marsha Smith is leaving, well, has left office as both MP for North East St. Anne and, of course, as a junior minister in the Ministry of Education. Many people,
you know, the health, finance, and the good politician is always want the steady hand of the wicket as controlling the books of the country.
Yes.
So I wouldn't see anything wrong with that personally.
Dr. Spence, there was a time when the PNP goaded the JLP administration and called the finance ministry 1/3 because it had Audley Shaw, Don Webby, and a third, was it Auburn Hill who was attached? The three of them together were basically running the finance portfolio. Could we have a repeat of that if we were to follow Kevin's line of thinking? Or, because Andrew Holness markets himself as a shrewd political operative, the move with Matthew Samuda is too obvious, and that is not what he's intending to do, to bring him in.
That's true. We've a junior minister in
Yes.
that. You really wanted a finance minister, and you had somebody like an Auburn Hill in the Senate. Why not put him in one of the two safe seats? The one that Clark is exiting, and the
Northwest
one that
St.
Smith
Andrew
has exited.
Yes.
Well, you know, so clearly there is something here at play that those of us who are looking on and surmising and guessing are not seeing. And I'm sure, George, that the Prime Minister is going to surprise us. The thing that seems most obvious is not the thing that is going to happen. But what we can come up with our thesis. You know, we can put our thesis statements on the wall and then see how far we are. Because one of the things we do know is that Andrew Holness is a shrewd political actor. He's reading all of the signs, and he's reading what is happening, and he's coming up with the situation that will give him the most bang for his buck. So we know that something is happening. We just don't know it. A lot of potential things could be happening. I am more tied to the idea that Matthew's move to the House of Representatives is more about creating space in the Senate for somebody who might be the surprise.
Yes.
That's where I am thinking.
Kevin, you said that people in the private sector would want to fulfill, if not even a lifelong dream, but the distinction of serving their country as head of the finance ministry. There was a rumor some time ago, and in politics there are many rumors, you know that better than most. There are many rumors in politics. There was a rumor some time ago that Keith Duncan of JMB fame, of one of the most famous political families in Jamaica, a strong PNP family, it must be said, was being tapped up to serve this JLP administration in some capacity, perhaps even through the finance ministry. Could that be where Holness is going in a roundabout way? Keith Duncan serving as finance minister or an enabler in the finance ministry through the Senate?
Another wonderful political story. D.K. Duncan, the hardest core socialist in the 1970s for the PNP, his son becomes finance minister for the JLP a generation later. Wouldn't that be a great story? Keith is very well respected by everybody. He was head of Epoch. I hardly think anybody would be unhappy to see Keith Duncan in charge of the books. And probably, you know, if he was politically inclined to be an MP, he might well be the choice. But remember, you know, Nigel Clark was has never been a politician. He was in the private sector. He was parachuted in. when Derek Smith left. And so it would not be much different. Keith Duncan for Nigel Clark would not be a lot different, except maybe Keith doesn't like the political bravura, you know?
Yeah.
As I said, a lot of people just don't like that political thing. It takes up time and it can dirty you if you stay too long. I think Nigel got out before he got dirted up. It's a dirty game, politics. And it's a reality. Politics is human nature in the raw. So when people say the negative side of human nature, which it is in politics, they start to get reacting negatively to it. But it's a part of life. Can't be escaped from. But as I said, if Andrew Holness, you put Keith Duncan there, put Keith Duncan in the Senate, made him de facto finance minister, Andrew Holness had the title, who's going to quarrel? Because every Jamaican wants a sound macroeconomic environment, PNP, JLP. And nobody can say Nigel Clark did not supply that. But remember, Audley Shaw was doing a pretty good job before Nigel Clark came. It's not as if Audley's doing a disastrous job and we had to take it away from him.
Yes.
By all accounts, the numbers were good.
Yes.
But I guess Andrew Holness or Nigel had a higher understanding of finance and put him there.
Yes.
So, as I said, I would have no problem at all if that is what Holness was doing.
Dr. Spence, let me ask you this one before time runs out. The word on the streets is that the JLP are waiting on Mama D down in South Trelawney to sort out that little court matter with the Integrity Commission and then be clear for takeoff back in her stomping ground of South Trelawney. I'm talking about Marissa Dalrymple Philibert, the former House Speaker and longtime MP in that neck of the woods. Does that make good sense from your perspective to wait on Mrs. Dalrymple Philibert to be eligible once again for a clear run at the MP ship in South Trelawney?
So we're talking about politics and we're talking about winning elections, of course. Of course it makes sense because that's what political parties do. They choose their best strategy. And remember the PNP went out hot. You know, who did they put in that seat again?
Well, Paul Patmore is there, the former councillor for the Lorimers division. Next door is Wicker McNeil in North Trelawney, who's going to tackle Tova Hamilton.
Right. So they are seeking to find seats that they think have been weakened by one way or the other, by one thing or the other. And they think Mrs. Dalrymple's resignation had weakened the core of the JLP support in that constituency. So I think the JLP is saying, you know, perhaps they are not so sure about their support there. Perhaps the PNP is right. And if it is that the PNP is right and the JLP support has been weakened, then the JLP is pulling back for their best candidate,
weapon.
For their best choice to win that seat. And you can't blame them for that. It's politics. That's how the game is played.
This is usually my opinion time, but I'm going to give the time to both of you because I want to ask you. The Integrity Commission report is out. We understand that the Prime Minister is a subject to report. Don't know precisely what it says. But